You can see we're exploring again. I'm Joseph, this is Input English. I decided to take a walk today. It's the mid-afternoon on a weekday, and I drove a little over 30 minutes to get here from the house. This is a state park. This is the Cowell State Park, and I made a video in the past about this state park. There was a video about the old growth redwood grove that they have. But this part of the park is a little funny. That expression, when something's a little funny, that could mean a couple of different things. We can describe things as funny if they're amusing. A comedian who tells good jokes, those jokes should be funny. Some YouTube videos are very funny. And if something's funny, it could cause us to laugh. We could laugh out loud, ha ha ha. Or we could snicker, or we could chuckle, or we could just smile. And typically a smile makes no sound. It's just a facial expression. So that is the way we use funny to depict something that is amusing. But an alternative use for funny is something that is peculiar or unusual, strange. Someone could give you a funny look. If someone gives you a funny look, it's a peculiar look or a strange look. It doesn't make you laugh, it might make you concerned. If you walk into a location, a place, and it seems kind of funny, it might be bad. It might be peculiar in a worrisome way. If you say something is funny, you could be saying it's amusing, or you could be saying it's peculiar, strange, or unusual. So when I said this place is funny, I didn't mean funny haha, I meant funny strange. I have to give credit for that phrase. That came from a coworker who I had the privilege of working with decades ago. She was very good at what she did, and she had this idiosyncrasy that if you said, yeah, that's kind of funny, she would want you to clarify funny haha or funny strange. So this place is funny strange. So what's so strange about it? Well, where we're going is called the Garden of Eden. Now that's a biblical reference. That refers to Genesis in the first book of the Old Testament, as I recall. Someone looked at this place years ago, maybe 100 years ago or more, and called it the Garden of Eden. And like so many things, the name caught on. Other people decided to use that name. Now, why they called it the Garden of Eden, I have no idea. It could be because of the lush foliage. It could be because of the abundance of water. It could be that they just thought it was beautiful. I don't know. The peculiarity of this hike is that it is a little vague how to get there. There are a lot of YouTubes that depict this hike into the Garden of Eden. And some of them talk about getting lost. Some of them talk about having no idea where they're going. And some of them say that they went in trying to find the Garden of Eden and never found it. Now, I don't expect that to be the case today, but it struck me as quite odd that there is a popular place to go hiking and there's so much controversy about how to get there. So we're just a few feet off the parking lot. I stepped out of the parking lot because of a tremendous amount of road noise up there. So we're now in the redwoods, and I'm going to walk. It's slightly downhill, so it's easy. It's a nice broad path here. So this time of year, in early June, hiking in Northern California, you have to be a little careful about ticks. Ticks are not insects, they're arachnids, and they will latch on to people or animals, and ticks embed their head and jaw into the skin and then help themselves to the blood supply. They become engorged in blood and then they drop off. It's part of their life cycle. Unfortunately, they can transmit disease to humans, and the one that we would worry about here in Northern California would be Lyme disease. We don't want Lyme disease. It is caused by a spirochete, and it is susceptible to antibiotics. You can treat it with antibiotics, but the problem with Lyme disease is a lot of people who get it don't know they have it. They have a bunch of vague symptoms. They just feel terrible, and they don't have any specific symptoms that make the diagnosis easy. So a lot of people with Lyme disease get diagnosed after they've had it for a long time. The smart thing to do is pay attention, and if you get a tick on you, remove it promptly. There are techniques for removing ticks, and there are also little tools to do it in an adaptive, good way. I have one of those tools at the house. I have removed many ticks from myself and my wife. We've never had Lyme disease. So I'm going to continue here. This broad path, we don't come into contact with foliage, so it's unlikely that ticks would find their way onto me, but I will check after I get home to make sure I haven't picked any up. The instructions I have here is to walk down here until we get to a fork in the road. Then you have to make a decision. I was instructed to turn to the right. Okay, that makes sense. And then we will travel further and get to railroad tracks. Now, these are not ordinary railroad tracks. If you travel around the United States and you encounter modern railroad tracks, the distance between the two rails is 4 foot 8.5 inches. We call that standard gauge. That's what a freight train or a passenger train would use. But these rails are 3 feet apart. This is the old narrow gauge railroad, 3 feet between the two rails. You might be able to hear a train whistle in the background. We could benefit from seeing a train today. That would be extraordinary, because I heard a train whistle. There is a train line down here called the Roaring Camp Railroad. It may have a more elaborate name than that, but we just call it Roaring Camp. They have control of these old narrow gauge tracks and the railroad right-of-way, and they have old trains that they run on it for purposes of entertaining tourists. I have ridden on those trains in the past, and I might just be compelled to make a video about the Roaring Camp Railroad experience. Continuing on this trail, it's much the same. This is a second growth redwood grove. The old growth trees have been cut for lumber. This area was logged probably more than 100 years ago. And then, as I've explained in other videos, a peculiarity of redwood trees is when you cut off a redwood tree, it frequently does not kill the rootstock, and the roots put up new trees around it. So you might see a cut off stump that is dead, the result of logging, but around that can be arrayed a half a dozen or more new trees, and they all share the rootstock from the tree that was cut down. What we see is a lot of patterns of trees in little circles, little rings of trees with a dead stump in the middle of them. Now, one of the reasons I need to be vigilant about the railroad is if they run a train through here, I need to be off the track. You may be hearing the train whistle. I certainly can. I don't know if the microphone's picking it up or not. We have arrived at the roadbed. The roadbed attributable to this narrow gauge railroad. We're going to walk along next to this roadbed, and I'm going to pay attention to make sure that we don't get tangled up with a train. If a train comes, it will come from this direction toward us. That's where the train whistle was heard from, back there. I think it'd be a great treat if the train were to arrive. This is said to be about a 15-minute walk. I've never been here before, so I wouldn't know. I am listening for the sounds of water. To my left, that is to your right, there is the San Lorenzo River. This is a river that collects water from a number of streams and then conducts that water down to Santa Cruz to be released into the Monterey Bay. Below me, there is the river canyon of the San Lorenzo River, and I can hear water, little miniature waterfalls and little pools. So I think we're getting pretty close to our destination. Okay, so we are here. I think I can sort of figure out what these signs say, but people have painted and inscribed messages all over the surface of these signs, obscuring what the sign originally read. I think it basically tells us not to take glass bottles in there, and if you take something in, pack it out. They don't want trash piling up. So this looks like the point at which we will go down, and I'm probably not going to make footage because it looks like a fairly steep grade, so I'm going to carefully go down there and then resume making video once I get down the steep part. So we do have some folks here enjoying their time in the water. I can see why they might refer to this as the Garden of Eden. It's very lush foliage and clear water. As I recall, visitors here are cautioned not to jump from the rocks into the water, but I did hear some counting 1, 2, 3, followed by a splash. So I'm not sure everyone is heeding all the rules, but I'm not here to enforce the rules either. So we definitely have arrived here in the Garden of Eden, the swimming hole in Santa Cruz County near Felton, California. Now, I didn't bring a bathing suit, and I have no intention of getting in that water. I came here for a hike, and a good hike it was. It's a lovely place. I think if I wanted to come here without so many people, I should come very early in the morning when it's cold and not conducive to swimming. I can't imagine how cold that water is. That water could be rather cold. But undaunted, the swimmers are enjoying themselves. I invite comments below, and if you like videos like this, be sure to click on this one next. See you soon.